I do enjoy the media training work I deliver in London. There's a special atmosphere around the city. There are organisations and institutions and businesses there that we just don't have here in Scotland. So it can be nice to get in amongst that buzz. And I always come away feeling quite energised, and I usually learn something from these clients that I work with. And one thing that I won't be seeing anymore, and I did still see it up until very recently, was people on the tube reading the Evening Standard. And that was the stereotype. Go back 15, 20, 30 years. Any weekday afternoon, you'd see them reading the Evening Standard on their way home from work, packed into the tube. Still seen it lately, not quite as much because, of course, we know about the decline of print media. And today we hear that the Evening Standard is going online only, with only a weekly print edition. Now, in our media training sessions, I always talk to clients about this. A lot of them have their own ideas and attitudes and opinions about the decline of print. And I ask them, how many of you read a newspaper? And hardly any hands go up. But one thing I always stress is that print media, newspapers in this country, retain a disproportionate level of influence over our society, but certainly over the rest of the media. So the Evening Standard website performs very well on Google search engines. But who's reading the Evening Standard website? Who will continue to read the print edition, the weekly print edition of the Evening Standard? Diminished though it might be, it's read by other journalists. Newspapers have a big influence over radio news and over television news. You walk into any broadcast newsroom, you'll find them looking at newspapers to help them decide what they're going to talk about on the radio or the TV rolling news bulletin that day. Yes, newspapers are declining. Yes, they're not what they once were. Yes, in certain sections of society, people may well scoff or ridicule the idea of buying a print newspaper every day. The days are probably numbered. The revenues are down, the readership is down, but the influence remains. And if part of your remit is news coverage, SEO, digital impressions, or relationships with the media, print is still a really powerful way of doing it. But at the same time, we need to be open to new media coming in, challengers coming in, trying to take the London daily newspaper space. Goodness me, are we honestly saying that we don't think London can support a daily newspaper? That's ridiculous. It might not be a newspaper going forward, it might be a digital online newsletter. That space that the Evening Standard has occupied is now up for grabs. One of the reasons that newspapers are having such a hard time, it's not as simple as people don't like or people don't read or people don't advertise in newspapers. Part of it is legacy debt. It's that newspaper, that publishing company. If I start a newspaper for London next week, is it going to lose £16 million next year? Well, no, it's not, because I wouldn't spend anything like that on it. It wouldn't take that for me to succeed with a newspaper in the London market. It's a problem for the Evening Standard because of the legacy issues around that publishing company, because of the way they've set it up, because of the expectation they have for revenue and the investors and the partners that they're working with. Someone else with no overheads, with no legacy, with no burden, just a passion for news, a passion for the audience. And yes, they might not do print, they might do video or podcast or a website or a Substack newsletter or whatever it is. But don't be fooled. There absolutely is an appetite, an audience, and a viable business model around daily news for London, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Aberdeen, whatever you want. Don't confuse someone else's multi-million pound loss with a lack of appetite or a lack of potential for mainstream news publications in this country. I always liked the Evening Standard. I wish it well as it transitions to this new model. I have to say, I think the death of print is wildly over-exaggerated. And if the Evening Standard doesn't go back to a daily print model at some point, I think someone else will take that space.